Hello, welcome once again to Pale Blooms and Beyond. Thank you for joining us today. If you do like the programming you see here and the musicians and artists that I visit with, please be sure and hit the like button below and also subscribe to the channel. Massachusetts-born Roger Salloom is an American singer, songwriter, and guitarist. A move to Bloomington, Indiana in 1966 to attend college found Roger forming the band Salloom-Sinclair and the Mother Bear. After relocating to San Francisco the following year, the band would play live in support of artists like Santana, Procol Harum, and B.B. King. Signing to Chess Records' offshoot label, Cadet Concept, the unit released an album in 1968. In 1969, Roger and co-leader Robin Sinclair issued a self-titled album, Salloom-Sinclair. In 1982, Mr. Salloom would release an acclaimed solo album, but then retired from music for many years. In the new millennium, Roger would catch his second breath and begin playing and recording again. Then in 2004, he became the subject of the award-winning documentary, So Glad I Made It, the Saga of Roger Salloom, America's Best Unknown Songwriter. Roger's 2009 album, Last Call, garnered great reviews. And my guest is still playing live today from time to time. Well, welcome, Roger.
Well, thank you, Greg, for being interested in me.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. Well, take us back to the beginning. Where were you born in Massachusetts?
I was born in Worcester,
Okay.
I think at Memorial Hospital.
Okay. All
or
right.
Hanneman. I used to know, but now I don't know.
Okay. All right. In a hospital anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. I know.
And I had a mother. It was it was not an immaculate conception.
An immaculate conception. You weren't delivered by a stork. Okay. Either. Okay. Yeah. Well, do you recall your early childhood growing up as far as was there music in the household?
My very early childhood, I could recall nothing.
Okay.
Except at one point I thought I was a dog. And I was underneath the table barking. And at another point, my mother got very upset because I almost fell down a well in Utica, New York.
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
she lied to me. The only time she ever lied to me, she said, "You better come up." I said, "You're going to be upset because I was standing right next to this well." And she said, thought I would fall in. And I said, "Are you lying to me?" And she said, "No." But she was, for my own sake. And I went back up there and I didn't fall in the well.
How old were you then?
I must have been about 4.
Were either one of your parents musically inclined at all?
Nope, there's not. There wasn't then, there isn't now. One Salloom who plays music. Now, there's some on my mother's side.
Okay.
There's a recording engineer outside of New York, and his last name is Joseph.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, boy. All right, you might have gotten some of the gene from him, musical gene.
He's my nephew. He would be my second cousin, so
okay.
I came before him.
Okay. What was the first instrument you learned to play?
That's an excellent question. I guess the first instrument was my voice.
Okay.
Because I used to sing. And then the first instrument where you'd play with your hands was a banjo.
Okay.
A 5-string banjo.
Okay. And that was what, around 13, right? You were around 13?
No, I was
earlier than that.
Yeah, I was maybe 11 or 12.
Okay.
10. And my mama said I was shy.
Okay.
And she said, "You need to come out of your shell a little bit.
Yeah.
How about, would you like to play an instrument?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Sure." And then right around that time, I started listening to Pete Seeger and the Kingston Trio.
Yes.
And I, was pretty excited about banjo, but I didn't know, I think I played a gig when I was 14 with my banjo.
Okay. You didn't ever play the ukulele, did you?
No.
Okay. I've heard that doing these interviews, a lot of guitarists especially started out with the ukulele. It's interesting.
Well, I think the fingering on the fretboard are about the same.
Yeah. Yes.
But
Yes.
I
I think.
I had no interest in ukulele, and I think I'm glad I did.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, good. Good. Yeah. Uh, I was going to say, yeah, the guitar and the banjo are, two instruments, like you said, especially with folk music too. You hear both of those
Yeah,
instruments.
I was part of the folk revolution, but I was about 4 years behind, Joe Baez and Bob Dylan and all them people.
Yes,
I
yes.
was 4 or 5 years behind them.
Okay, a little late coming into that. Well,
Yeah,
well, can you recall one of the first? Were you going to concerts at all before you went off to college? Did you go to any shows?
I went to a show at the Worcester Auditorium, the only one I could recall when I was young.
Hmm.
I might have gone to one. Well, I went to one at Worcester Auditorium where Dylan played, but they asked me to review the school newspaper, the State College at Worcester, asked me to review Dylan, and I did. And then I actually played in that venue, opening for Jose Feliciano, all around the same time.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Did you give Dylan a good review?
I gave him a mixed review because I was kind of a jackass, and I regret it to this day.
Yeah.
Because I said, what's I was a folkie and he was rocking and rolling, and I said, what the hell's the matter with him?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then I started rocking and rolling myself a little later on.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard how many fans were disappointed when he went to that electric, started
Yeah,
playing the electric
yeah,
guitar. By the way, did you happen to see the new biopic, the Dylan biopic?
I did, and I have a little connection to that.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead
Uh,
and tell about that.
a friend of mine, two friends, David and Brunella Satterfield. David was a young, brilliant, poor kid from southern Indiana, Columbus, Indiana family, real, poor, poor people, uneducated. But David was brilliant. He got a scholarship to Dartmouth. And I think in New York City is where I think he met Brunella, who was a red diaper baby in San Francisco Bay Area. And they were playing along with Bob and others at all the village places, and they played together a lot. And at one point, Dylan asked Bob and Dave, asked Dave and Brunella to come out in the alleyway at, I think it was the Gaslight of Gertie's Folk City. And he said, I want to play you my new song. But I think he played a lot of songs, but one song he played was Blowing in the Wind. And he said, what do you think of that? And they said, well, it's too corny, Roger. Bob, it'll never do anything.
Didn't think it would.
Yeah, so he slept on their couch for like 6 months.
Did he?
When he first arrived in Manhattan, he was broke.
Yeah.
And he was homeless.
Yeah. I pick up a story there. You know who Carolyn Hester is? Have you heard that name?
I do. I
Oh,
do, actually.
okay. Uh, she was playing her in and around the Greenwich Village when he was coming up.
Yeah.
Bob was coming, and he was going around begging everybody to play on their recordings. Oh, will you let me play? Please let me play. And he asked her, and she allowed him on one of her recordings, and I don't remember which one, to play the harmonica, not guitar, just the harmonica, and
Right.
to back her on one. So she tells that story.
Well, he grew at an alarming rate. He got very fast. He became really good at what he did,
Yeah.
and he just magic. It just blossomed into this prolific, profound fellow.
Oh yes, and like you said, prolific in his songwriting output. It's just like,
Oh, he's prolific. Oh yeah.
oh yes. Well, what were some other musical influences as you became like a teenager for you?
Well, I listened to a lot of blues. I loved Jimmy Reed, and
Oh,
I ended up having a sax player, Grammy Award-winning sax player in my band, Charles Neville of the Neville Brothers,
yeah.
and he had played with Jimmy Reed. That was much later in life, but early on it was Jimmy Reed and Leadbelly and Pete Seeger and the Kingston Trio, and I'm trying to think who else I really loved a lot.
Yeah,
I'm not sure I can tell them. I'm not sure I
yeah,
can think of them right now.
yeah.
Let me think for just a moment.
That's okay.
A bunch
And,
of other old blues guys. A friend
okay.
named Bob Burke was kept showing me licks on the guitar.
Yeah.
And anyway, yeah.
You remember the I guess the Boston band Orpheus? Remember?
Well, the very first gig I ever did, I was in junior high school. I was 13, I think, or 14.
Uh,
And the leader, who became the leader of Orpheus,
yes.
was
Yeah.
a schoolmate of mine. He's passed on. Bruce Arnold, he started Orpheus,
Yes, he had. Yes.
and he and Jack McKinnis, but I heard Bruce wedged out Jack McKinnis,
Yeah.
which he should have never done, but he did it.
Yeah.
And I had to push Bruce to go do the gig. He was terrified.
Oh, was
He,
he?
he was very proud of his hair. He reminds me in hindsight of Donald Trump. He was very proud of his hair. It was slicked back. And I said, how do you get your hair to do that? I was not admiring his hair. I just thought it looked weird.
Yeah.
He says, oh, I use sugar and water. I said,
Really?
you do what? He said, I use sugar and water on my hair. And at that point, I stopped seeing him. I didn't want to see
After that, this
sugar and
guy's
water.
weird. This guy's
He's
weird.
yeah, he's an animal. This guy's an animal.
Well, I spoke to Harry Sandler, who was in Orpheus. That's why I brought that up, and I thought
Oh,
that end of the country. Yeah, I spoke to him. He's one of the surviving members of Orpheus. Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I was going.
I texted with Bruce
Yeah.
later on in his life. And then when he died, I kept, unbeknownst to me, I didn't know he was dead. His son was posing as him, I am told.
Oh,
And I was texting with his son as if I was talking to Bruce, because Bruce had become demented and he couldn't,
yeah.
he couldn't handle stuff. So his son did it for him, I guess.
That's
So
that's
that was,
unfortunate.
yeah,
That,
it's really weird. Yeah, it's weird.
that's sad. That's sad. Yeah, I talked to the guy I talked to earlier. He recorded with Scott Walker. Remember Scott Walker?
No.
The Walker brothers. He was American, but he moved to England and made it really big there. It's part of the
Oh,
Walker brothers and solo. Anyway, he tells a story. He met him when he was kind of going in decline. It might have been Alzheimer's. I'm not sure, but
yeah.
he wasn't all there. I said, it's unfortunate, when you meet somebody at that point in their life, you know. But let me,
It is. It's horribly sad. It's all sad.
yeah, yeah. Uh, were you in a band there in Worcester, or before you went to
No,
Indiana? India?
no, I was not. I was
Okay,
solo. When
okay,
I left Worcester State College, I went to Indiana University,
yeah,
and for me, that was sort of my Greenwich Village. That's when I really broke
yeah,
up and had a great time,
yeah.
and I really did. And
Yeah. Was there
that's where I met David and Bradella,
yeah,
and I
yeah,
also dated, and I didn't think of it much at all at the time. I just didn't phase me at all. But my girlfriend was Jack Kerouac's girlfriend for a while.
is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Linda Lee Kriz,
Yeah,
Kriz. She was a beautiful girl and a
wow.
sweet,
Did,
nice person
I
from
wonder
Florida. she was frolicking with him and others in Florida.
Wow. I wonder if he wrote about her in any of his novels.
He might have.
Yeah.
He might have. You know.
Yeah. Well, so you did go to Indiana University,
Yeah.
and your first band was with the Vest Pocket Players.
No.
No,
But
you were there.
at that time when that record came out,
Hmm.
I was still playing solo, so
Okay.
occasionally people would accompany me, but I never asked anybody.
Okay.
But I became very famous in Bloomington,
Okay.
and all my shows were always completely sold out. People would just hang around outside the windows, listening to me or watching me in the coffee house downstairs, and that's where Chris Sauter first saw me.
He saw you there. Okay.
And they wanted the people who organized the coffee house. A wonderful guy who was a friend of mine said, "Can you make a David Hunter? He's a lawyer now. He's a public defender type in Elbert. He's up in Ashburnham, Washington, I think."
Oh, okay.
And he said, "You want to make a record?" And I said, "Well, yeah, sure." I didn't care, you know. So I went in and I recorded, and they sold them out. I think they made 1,000 copies, and they sold them out in like a week.
Did
And
they?
then they needed more before they put the record out. They needed someone to take up some of the space on the flip side of the LP. And there was a theatrical group called the Vest Pocket Players who'd been
Okay.
using that coffee house. And Kevin Klein, who became famous,
Yes,
he was in the Vest Pocket Players.
he was in that. Okay.
Yeah, I remember him vaguely. He would come in. He always had a scarf. He was very histrionic. You know, he'd throw the scarf over his shoulders.
Yes. Yes.
Nice. They're all nice fellas and
Yes.
gals. But anyway,
Yeah.
that's
How interesting.
and that
Well,
record, by the way, I think if you're a journalist type, which I think you are, that record was selling for $4,000.
yeah. Isn't that something?
Yeah, it went down to 1,500, the original. Then a company out of New Jersey, New York, Boyd Records, and Brian Hewlett runs that, and he asked if he could reproduce the record. So I gave him a license to.
Yeah.
Dave Hunter said I could do that. I gave him a license to make a record. So they have some of them for like 20 and 25, but the originals and the copies are pretty. I mean, they're identical, you know.
Yeah.
But the originals are they 350 up to, well, I don't know, there's one there for 1,500.
Yeah.
But they've also been on sale for several thousand.
Yes. Isn't that fascinating? I find that very fascinating. You know, how years and decades later, you know, how an album obscure,
Yeah. I mean, it makes me feel good about who I am,
yeah.
even though I don't like that record.
You don't like it.
No, I don't.
Let me ask you this, moving ahead to the Mother Bear.
Yeah.
They were already a band, right? When you met them.
Right. They were a band, and I'm pretty sure they were called the Mother Band. They were a soul band.
Okay.
And I don't know, I got their number and I went down to see them and they joined me. Yeah. And at that point I had Robin, I think. Yeah, I think I had Robin. And they were like a rhythm and blue-eyed soul type band.
Okay.
And I was a folkie, so it was a weird marriage, but it was okay. You know,
yeah.
Music is music. So we met and they followed me around. And
did they ever tell you, or did you ever ask them where the name came from, the Mother Bear?
No, I never did. There's a restaurant now in Bloomington called the Mother Bear.
Oh, okay. I wonder if it's named after the band or vice versa.
I would think so.
Okay.
But I don't. What do I know? I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'm going to have to try. Do you know if any of those guys are still around?
Well, I know that the leader of that band, Dick Orvis, he passed away.
Okay.
And I'm friendly with his son or two of his sons.
Okay.
And then Robin Sinclair passed away too.
Yeah. Yes.
And then the other guys, Phil Montgomery, the drummer, John Hoyland, the bass player, and Hutch Davis. I don't know anything about them. I think
Oh,
Hutch is still alive.
okay. I was going to say I might have to track one of them down just to ask them where the name came from. You know,
Yeah, sure.
like get to the bottom of that. Well, how did you meet Robin Sinclair?
She was part of the Beatnik crew that
Okay.
we eventually became called hippies.
Okay.
And she was just one of the crew, and she's a beautiful, a lovely person.
Yeah.
And she had opera training.
Yeah, I was going to say her voice. Yeah, she
Yeah,
she had that background. Yes,
yeah,
which became very important in the band and then your subsequent other album.
yeah,
We talked about the band's type of, they were soul, you were more into folk. Uh,
yeah.
what are some of the favorite memories of live shows and bands that you supported?
Well, I have a very funny one,
We love to
and
hear funny ones. Yes.
this is gonna really put a bee in some people's bonnets.
Okay.
But I had Marshall Chess of Chess Records. He
Yeah.
sent me down to Nashville to record with Bob Dylan's band in 1971, I think. And we went down there. We met all those guys. They formed a band after that, and I think they won a Grammy Award, or they were nominated. Area code
Area
six
code 615. Yeah.
six one
Yeah.
five.
Yeah.
And at one point, I was in the dressing room with them in San Francisco at the Avalon or the Fillmore or the Carousel Ball. And Linda Ronstadt was in there, and she was sitting next to the guy, Kenny Buttry. I always had this notion that these guys who played with Dylan were these poetic musicians, and in Nashville, I'm saying,
Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
weren't.
Yeah.
They were just country boys who were good at music, but they didn't really get his poetry, nor were they on his level to understand his poetry.
Right.
Linda was, but anyway, they went on stage, and Linda and I, we both said to each other, "Want to go on front and listen to them?" We did. Now, Linda was an up and coming star, and I don't really know. I think she was already famous, but I didn't like people that were, I didn't like people that were too famous, and
Yeah.
I just didn't like it. And so I stood up and watched them, and she crouched down, kind of at my feet.
Yeah.
We were both looking at the stage. When you get on your haunches, it's called. You get down and it's kind of Vietnamese soldier stuff. You get down and you sit on your legs, kind of, but
Yeah.
you're not sitting.
Right.
And
Right.
that's what she did. And I was so disgusted. She was so taken with Kenny Butchery. I think she, arm in arm, she might have kissed his arm or something. And I said, "Oh, come on, it's not that
Right.
stuff." But anyway, out in the ballroom, I pushed her over.
Did you?
He fell on the floor. She's a little thing,
Yeah.
I, she fell on the floor, and I walked away, and I never saw her again. But let me tell you that the plot thickens here.
Yeah. Okay.
And then about 10 years ago, the fellow who made the movie used to sit outside my concerts and watch me. He not it was not only his idea to make the movie and the title and his money. He spent like 250 grand on that film.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
he's the first guy that President Obama ever asked to help Barack in his first run for president. And they did
Really?
a little poll, and my friend Chris Sauter's advice, he wasn't my friend then, was to tell Barack to change his first name to Barry.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that didn't work out. Anyway, I don't know, he hooked up with, not hooked up in the,
In that way.
in a
Yeah.
corporal way, just as,
Yeah.
with Linda, because she was making a movie down there in the Southwest, which is where I think she lives now. She's half German, half Mexican.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she didn't like that they were profiling her ancestors or her family,
Right.
Mexican looking people. And Chris was doing another movie about that, about documentary. So he asked me, or she asked me, she didn't ask me, he asked me, would I sing Deportee? And she wanted us to sing Deportee. So I was going to do a duet with her. And nowadays, you don't even have to be in the studio with somebody.
No, you don't. No,
You don't have to do it anymore. You just email all the tracks.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty sophisticated electronic stuff, but so we had the basics down, and then we were getting ready to add her, and she said I can't sing, and we didn't know why she couldn't sing.
Yeah.
We couldn't figure out, and she didn't know. She didn't have a diagnosis of the Parkinson's yet.
Oh, right.
So it was very sad, but I need to tell you, she's a woman of quality and integrity. She knows her ethics, and she's a good person.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I didn't get to sing with her, but we had a duet out of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and their names were something Rose, like Rosalind Rose or something like that. They were beautiful singers and beautiful young ladies, and they ended up doing her part.
Oh, doing her part. Yeah. That's a terrible. Yeah, my dad had Parkinson's and Alzheimer's before he passed. Yeah.
Oh, that's tough, man.
Yeah, it is. It is.
That
Because they couldn't get the right dosage right.
Yeah.
I mean, they would give him something for the Parkinson's, and it would adversely affect the Alzheimer's, and vice versa.
Oh yeah, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, that was.
So
It's been a few. 2008, he passed, but yeah, those last years were pretty tough, pretty tough. Well, do you have any stories playing like with Santana?
Not really. I remember hearing him. I thought he was interested. He was lucky to sign with Columbia.
Yeah.
And because I'm not sure they would have done as well if they hadn't signed with Columbia.
Yeah.
But I remember them. I remember the English bands. I played with Procol Harum.
Procol Harum. Yeah.
And they were very studious about being professional musicians, while most of the American musicians are really loose and goofy and bluesy and
Yes.
drinking and all that stuff. But those English guys, they came over, and the ones I ran into were very serious about their music and about their career. So they always want to start on time and play properly, and I thought that was interesting.
That was interesting. How about B.B. King?
I remember that we played with B.B. King, but I can't remember anything about it. And Charles played with B.B. King too.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He did. Okay. Well, you did mention area code. Is it 615 or 615? How do you say it?
Well, I don't know. It is 6 and a 1 and a 5. I don't think it matters, Greg. If that keeps you up, you need to talk to us.
That's Nashville's area code. That's where it comes from, right?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Well, you recall recollections from the '68 album, Salloom-Sinclair and the Mother Bear?
Yeah, I'll tell you some stuff. Now, we might
Okay.
as well, because it doesn't matter anymore.
Okay.
Robin has passed on. I don't know what Marshall's doing, but he was interviewed for that film about me. But we were, he was intrigued by us. He came to hear us, I think in Indianapolis, and he signed us. And even then, people were they were doing that Dylan thing. And he said, "Oh, do you want to record with the Nashville Skyline Band?" I said, "Okay." I don't know what just happened. Oh, here we go.
Oh, it lost you for a second.
Yeah. So I said, "Sure." So we made a record, and Marshall Chess was obliged by the union to pay me union dues, and he wanted me to gamble with him, and I forgot what we did, dice, or we flipped a coin for my wages, and he won. He took my wages from the session.
Really, by gambling.
Yeah, but I got him back because his uncle, his uncle, now he ran out of the office, big, beautiful office. He said, "Oh, my uncle, one of the Chess brothers, or his father, I'm not sure, just had a heart attack," and he left, and Robin and I are just sitting there, and Robin and I were not lovers or anything, but we started doing that on his death, and it was, when I look back on it and think about it, it was just disgusting. Just, we were hippies, with free
Yeah.
love
Yeah.
and free love, and there was never a malicious thought anywhere between anybody about anything.
Right.
There
Right.
was never any possessiveness either. So
Right.
that's one thing I really liked about the late '60s, along with Vietnam and the civil rights, which I did protest. I got arrested once for civil rights protest, and but all the stuff, no countries, and just like John Lennon's Imagine song, no
Imagine. Yeah.
countries, no war.
Right.
But the free love was a part I was very studious about.
You mastered in that, huh?
I was pretty good.
Or
They asked me if I,
PhD.
yeah, Yale called me and asked me if I wanted to get a PhD in that.
PhD in free love.
I was I was so honored. I said no.
What if they offered courses in that? Wouldn't that be
Yeah.
something? Well, the second album from '69, you and Robin, that's when you went down to Nashville to record that.
Well, Robin and I went down there. We recorded with them, and it was fun. But Charlie McCoy was the producer, and I think Charlie had not done
Okay.
any producing, so he kind of overproduced it.
Oh, okay.
And I was suffering from a crippling case of ADHD, and I
Okay.
couldn't focus with the remix guy and fix it. But they're
Okay.
all good guys. David Briggs is gone. He's a beautiful,
Yeah.
brilliant musician. And
Yeah.
Matt Gaden, he's become kind of an acquaintance of mine.
Oh, okay.
He played with on he toured with him.
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah,
wonderful.
and the
Very
backing band was area code 615, and
That was some of the guys from
some of them, not all of them.
National Skyline. Yeah.
Yeah. Was that now had they already come out with Stone Fox Chase, or would that be later? That song.
I don't recognize that.
Oh, that's the song that they're known for. It became the theme of the Old Gray Whistle Test. The BBC music program.
Oh no, I don't know about that.
Yeah, that was popular in the '70s, I believe.
Guys in Nashville that for whatever reason I hooked up with were all from Houston.
Okay.
Or many of them were. They all hung out. I was the only one from Massachusetts.
Okay.
And that was Guy Clark and Jerry
yeah.
Jeff Walker and Towns Van Zandt
Oh yeah.
and Rodney Crowell and Guy's wife Susanna, and those were all my friends at the time.
Wow. Yeah.
And I heard all these great Guy Clark songs.
Yeah.
Before they were producing, he was interested in me.
Yeah.
And I was interested in him, but I never deified him the way everyone else did.
Yeah.
Because I realized I saw some of his, if you're going to deify someone, they better be perfect.
Yes.
Close. And Guy was close, but he wasn't.
He wasn't perfect.
He had his
faults, shortcomings.
He had his human side, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned those. Yeah, and sadly, they've all passed, haven't all of those that you mentioned?
Well, all of them except Rodney.
Okay.
And this one guy named, he started a folk club.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of the name of the club. I can't think of his name. He wrote a song, I kind of added a little bit to it, called The Talking Transplant Blues.
Okay.
What the hell is his name? Roscoe Buddy or something like that. But he was great. I think he's still alive.
Yeah.
Dobbins is dead. Susanna's gone.
Yeah. Now Townes Van Zandt, that's one of my all-time favorite singer-songwriters.
Yeah, he's a hypnotic kind of songwriter.
Yes,
You know,
very
the
much
last
so.
time I saw Towns, we were at a party. You know what he was doing?
What?
They were playing a game, like a contest.
Yeah,
They would get drunk and they would try to walk. They were all wearing cowboy boots, and
yeah,
probably including me.
yeah,
And we were getting the contest was how far can you walk and simultaneously spit on every boot of
yeah.
your boot as you walk. So you'd spit in the left, then you'd spit on the right one, then the left. And Towns was up when I left that party, and he was spitting all over his boots.
I've never heard that game before.
Yeah, well, you got to be really drunk to think that's
I
bad.
was going to say that goes with the territory, I guess.
Yeah, the ones that stayed alive, they all sobered up.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Well, going back to the band, what happened to the members post Salloom-Sinclair and the Mother Bear? What happened to the other
They
members?
formed a band called California Gold,
Okay,
and my dear cousin Billy or William, who became a renowned architect, he managed them, and they flopped. Nothing happened with them.
yeah,
They
right.
played the Bay Area.
Okay, played out there.
Did you live in the Bay Area ever?
No, no, never did. Never,
Oh, okay.
yeah, never did. Yeah, I've spoken to several musicians from out there. Yeah, but no,
Yeah.
I've never lived out there. Well, in 1982, you released your solo album. Would you like to
Yep.
meet someone?
Yep.
And that did fairly well, didn't it?
It did actually. We had limited expectations, and it exceeded our expectations,
Yeah,
and was a success in many ways.
yeah,
And it got me. It was a song called "Out of Worcester." Got to get out of Worcester. It
yeah,
was a remake of what I made in 1975. This one was in 1983, I think. And
okay,
Jeff Dwyer and a couple of his friends paid for it, and they
yeah,
made that record.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I guess that's the key to life, really, is have lower expectations, and then if you surpass them, then
Well,
you're happy.
that's my wife's motto
Is it?
about me.
It's about you.
Her middle name is Donna. Low expectations Salloom.
Yeah. Well, that song that you mentioned from "Would You Like to Meet Someone?"
Yeah.
Is that the one that won Big Mattress Song of the Week?
Yes.
Yeah. Where where does that come from? Big Mattress Song of the
Well,
Week.
that comes from this guy, this DJ who was the big DJ at the time, Charles Lacodera. But there was another guy who was actually more instrumental in making that song. It was when WBCN first started in Boston. It was in the top three. They spun it all day long.
Okay.
They spun it all the time. One time I was going in there to get some macrobiotic food with my wife at the time, and I dropped my wife off. Then I picked up a hitchhiker, a girl, and she sat in the back of our International Harvester 4-wheel drive wagon, and she, I don't know how we got to it. I might have come on the radio, and I might have said, "Hey, that's me," and
Yeah.
she said, "That's you." And then I realized that some people really were listening to what I was doing. And she was a young lady. She wasn't big or small. She was by herself, and she hit the back of my seat. And in the big International Forester truck, it was like a Chevy Suburban.
Yeah.
And she
Yeah.
shook the seat. I said, "Holy Jesus, she really thinks I'm something." That's when I realized some people thought I was cool. I
Yeah.
always thought I was nothing,
Yeah.
but they kind of thought I was something. So
Yeah.
that was pretty impressive.
Oh yeah. Well, where did that come from? The mattress, the idea for
I
that.
don't know. I think it was Charles Lacudera's imagination.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
a creative guy. I'm trying to think
Yeah.
of the guy that actually put it on the air and
Okay.
broke it. And I'm trying to think of his name. He was a creative guy.
Yeah.
Very. So was Charles. You know, they both were.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to think of his name. Anyway.
Yeah. Maybe they thought it was the kind of song that you did something with a significant other on the mattress when you're playing it. Maybe.
Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe it was. I know that they didn't like WAAF, which was a middle of the road
Yeah.
rock label, you know,
Yeah.
and they felt putting it Get Out of Worcester was sticking it to WAAF. I know that was
Yeah.
one, but they were like 45 stations on that song.
Yeah.
So
Well, moving on, you went on a long hiatus from music during the 90s, the 1990s.
yeah, I've run away from music several times because it's so emotional.
This is enjoyable to me because I enjoy hearing your stories. That's what it's about
Oh,
for me.
good. I got a
Yeah.
bunch of stories.
Well, that's what I like to hear, and the viewers do too. Anecdotes and stories are always,
Want
yeah.
to hear another funny one?
Sure, yes.
So it was the late '60s, and I had a rock band, and we crossed the United States several times from Bloomington to San Francisco. And this one time, we had a caravan of crazy people, and we all looked like hippies. And in those days, the only people who had long hair were hippies and communists, according to
Yeah, yeah,
the Midwest. And we're
yeah,
going through Kansas. And we stop at this convenience store. Now, my manager, who became a very distinguished architect, he and his wife designed the interior of the International Hospital in Beijing, the San Francisco International Airport, and the very posh headquarters of a lot of big companies, cool companies. But at that time, he was wearing brown leather pants, had a Bowie knife on his waist, had hair down to his butt, and probably a mustache, but I'm not sure of the mustache. But we all pile out of the car in Salinas, Kansas, and we go into this little grocery store, little convenience, Quick Mart,
yep,
that kind of thing.
yep.
And there were people in there, and they all run out. They ran out of not us, but the regular people from Kansas, run out of the store, and I look around, I ignore them, but my manager and my cousin, he became frightened. He says, "What's going on?" So he ran out with them, and he says, "Why is everybody running out of the store?" And it was because they were afraid of us. And
Oh,
I said, remember, it's 1967, 68.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
And long hair meant you were kind of a criminal.
Yeah,
And so the police came by and said, "You got to be out of town by sundown."
really,
Yeah,
really.
just like out
Yeah,
of a movie. So
yeah,
we got out of town by sundown.
yeah. I just talked to a guy, a musician. He was in. You probably don't know this band, We the People. And this is talking about how people come up with band names. He was in a garage. I think they were practicing, and his friend's garage, his dad's garage, and up on the wall was the Constitution, right? So they
Yeah.
hadn't come up with a name, and he just starts reading out loud, "We the People." And the other members said, "Stop, stop right there. That's our name." So that's where it came
Right.
from. That's where it came from. So they're from Florida. They could not afford to travel to LA or New York. It was too far to record in either one of those cities. The closest studio they could go to was Nashville. So they went to Nashville. Well, at that time, late 60s, like you're saying, there weren't any long hairs around,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh,
So
yeah.
they all had long hair. He said
Yeah.
walking down the street, the looks they would get,
Oh,
and
yeah.
yeah,
It was dangerous.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, they were going to arrest us for sure. But
yeah,
I think the funny part is my cousin runs out with those regular Kansas
yeah.
people. He says, what are you afraid of?"
Yeah.
and they were afraid of him.
And he's running with them. That's good. That's okay.
And then and they're in this store, right? And we had a guy named Igby with
Yeah,
us. He was like a roadie, and he
yeah,
was a colorful guy, tall, skinny as a rail, like a string bean.
yeah.
But he had this big set of hair, like an afro. A white guy, but he had a big afro. I mean, big. And he would the aisles with the canned goods, they were close. He'd turn his head and he'd knock cans off the shelf
Because
because of his
his
hair
hair,
would knock cans off the shelf. And they got upset with us for that too.
that too. Oh, when your hair gets you in trouble, right?
Yeah. I mean, really get you in trouble.
Well, how did you and filmmaker Chris Sauter meet, and how did he approach you about making the documentary?
Well, I never knew him
Oh, you didn't. Okay.
at IU.
Okay.
I never knew his older brother, who also apparently was a fan.
Okay.
But a fellow named Stan Hirsch, an attorney in Indianapolis, and his friend Jeff Green contacted me and said, "Would you like to do a show in Bloomington?" And I hadn't been in Bloomington for 20 years, and or 25 years. And I said to Jeff and Stan, I'd be happy to. And so they set it up at Waldron Arts Center, which is a beautiful venue. It had, maybe a couple hundred seats, and it was filled, and it was pretty exciting. And I remember one audience said, "Where have you been, Roger? And what have you been doing for 25 years?" And I says, "Well, does incarceration count?" they laughed. We had a good time, but Chris Sauter said he heard about that concert. He said, "I just won," about himself. He said, "I just won the New York International Independent Film Fest for a political film." He said, "I'm trying to think of what to do with my next film, and I'd like to make a documentary about you."
Oh, wow.
And I said, "Okay." His wife, they're both lawyers, him and his wife. And his wife, Harriet Lipkin, is an attorney, and she is the youngest woman to win a case in front of the U.S. Supreme Court. And Chris is substantial. He'd done a lot of campaigns, political campaigns for people. And I said, "Can I think about it for a couple of days?" And he said, "Sure." And I was pretty baffled. Why would anybody want to make a movie about me? I mean, I was really shocked. And I didn't want to sound discouraging to him. But then a couple of days later, he asked me to send him some of my latest recordings. He did ask for that, and I sent them, and he loved them. So I agreed to do the film, and I didn't think it'd be any good, but what do I know? He came in with a real crew. He didn't have a little iPhone or a tripod lights. He came in with like 6 or 7 people, lights, and a director, and he's filmed me for 2 years. And it got to be fun. I saw like a little teaser of it, a trailer, and I said, "Wow, that's really good, Chris. I can't believe it's good." And it was good. It won 6 awards, and it had been on 36 theaters, and it was on the documentary channel every month for a while, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Did you find out he had been a fan for some time, or?
Well, he told me that.
Okay.
Eventually, but I don't think he told me right away. We are now friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I ask him stuff about politics because he's worked with Bernie Sanders, and he's a liberal, and I am too.
Yeah.
He's worked with everybody, of course, Barack, but he turned down Barack. He said he didn't want to be a part of a big campaign.
Oh.
But they remained friends. In fact, I have a photo of him in the Oval Office, him and his wife, Harriet.
Well, I saw a clip on your website Where
Yeah,
were you about the movie, I guess, where you were at a talking to a DJ at a radio station
yeah,
about ornithology.
I
Yeah,
was.
he played a bird sound,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
asked you, are you really into that? Are you good at recognizing
About
birds?
birds? No,
Yeah.
I love all animals.
Okay.
I
Was
love
that
all animals,
was that
and
just a joke? Was that just a joke on there? Or?
I think so.
Was it a fun process though, doing the documentary? Did you enjoy it mostly?
Well, not in the beginning because they really take over your life, and we weren't prepared. I mean, they they blackened out all our windows with paper, and
Oh,
they brought dollies into our house, and
okay.
it was pretty intrusive. But you know what? The truth is, they're great people,
Yeah.
and they're on a mission to tell a story, and they did it. And I think it cost Chris $250,000 after all was said and done to
Wow.
make the movie, and I couldn't believe he was making it about me. But I didn't like it. But I found out that
Uh-huh.
the best thing to do was make them laugh. So I
Yeah.
started coming up with jokes and one-liners,
Oh,
and it
okay.
came out at the very end. And I missed them after they left.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, because I'd get to BS somebody and have fun with it. But
Yeah.
my friend Wes Talbot, who was an important part of Leo. Have you ever seen Leo?
Leo.
Leold.
Leold.
Yeah, go to leo.com and you'll see 75 of the 250 panels I created with
Oh, okay.
my son Salem.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Mike
Uh,
Scully, executive producer of The Simpsons, tried to get it on TV, and he would have if we had one of us had stayed in LA and pursued it.
how long did you say it
Oh,
took?
oh yeah, it took a couple of years.
A couple of years.
So
Okay.
at the end, the very last scene, Chris said it's his favorite scene in the movie. They run the credits, and then at the end of that last scene, Wes is interviewing me, and he says, "Well, what did you think of somebody making a film about
Yeah, yeah.
you?" And I said to him, I said, "Well, I've always thought there was someone making a film about me." But when I looked around, I noticed there's nobody there, no film crew, no cameras, no lights, nothing.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Funny, right?
Yes, yes. Maybe
It
maybe
was true though. It was true.
uh-huh.
I've always kind of felt like,
Yeah.
I'm on stage all the time.
Uh, yeah, maybe secret agents or operatives or something secretly filming you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but it was nothing. No
it
one was
was
filming anything.
nobody
I mean,
was.
I was sitting in a dark corner in a nightclub. No one
Yeah,
asked me
yeah.
my opinion about anything.
Well, so were you pretty pleased with the end result of the documentary? Pretty happy.
Well, yes, absolutely. It's a good
Yeah,
film. It's fun if you like
yeah,
musicians and music.
yeah,
It won 6 awards. It would have won more, but when you have like the first one was in Missoula, Montana, the Big Sky Film Documentary Film
yeah.
Festival. They don't want to give it to an out-of-stater, so they gave him second prize, Chris Sauter, and
Okay.
first prize went to a local guy. And I'm sure it was a good film, the documentary that got
Yeah.
first place. But they told him, they said, your film is actually better,
Uh,
but we don't want to give it to somebody not from Missoula area or Montana.
okay.
So, but it was a good film, really good film, and it was featured in the Grammy magazine and got on the Grammy ballot and all that.
Right, right, right. One more question about that. Were there any scenes that were cut that you wished had been included?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay, okay. Just off the top of your head? No. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not that surveillant, actually. I'm not that surveillant about things that nature.
Okay. All right.
And nothing bothered me about the film.
Okay. All right. All right. And you kind of, like you said, you kind of kindled some friendships along the way too. It's
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Chris, I consider him a friend. He knows more about politics than I'll ever know. And uh, the filmmakers' assistants were all from other states in the country.
okay.
There were none of them were from, did I ever see again?
Oh, all right, all right.
But I
Okay.
know the filmmaker, the videographer, the guy actually holding
Yeah,
the camera. It was a camera. It wasn't video.
yeah.
The camera. He was. I do know, and I don't know his. I've forgotten his name. I can look it up. But he was. He was. It might still be the official videographer or filmmaker for John Cougar Mellencamp.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. But he came up with the name America's Best Unknown Songwriter
Okay,
because
okay.
he was listening to some of my music and he told Chris, Chris, this Roger Salloom, he's 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 a great songwriter, and that's how they came about it. So they
Yeah,
came up with the name.
yes. Well, speaking of that, your 2009 CD Last Call garnered some rave reviews.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I've
I've
read,
seen that. Yeah,
I've read some of them. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I'm
So,
pretty. I'm going out with a bang. I'll tell you that.
okay.
I'm not. I'm no slouch here.
And going back, you were kind of on a hiatus, but your wife helped get you back into music too, kind of prompted you to.
Yeah, yeah. She and I met at a corner cafe, actually a Starbucks,
Uh-huh.
and we had a bunch of friends there. And she was starting to become intrigued with me, and she thought I was a street person,
Oh, okay.
and I couldn't make a living or anything. But that was not true. Uh, that was not true at all, actually. But she thought I was a street person, and we got to be a friend. She thought I was kind of a handyman, some kind like that. But not, handyman and street person are not the same kind of people. Handymen are like tradesmen, you know.
Right.
But anyway, she thought I was a handyman and I wasn't. They said, no, no, he's a singer. And we got married and she started saying stuff like, you're really good at that singing thing. Why don't you just do it again? And I said, nope. I kept saying nope. And then she said, I said, no, I said to her, if you come to every show and I can see your smiling face,
Uh-huh.
I'll start doing it. I'll start playing again. And she came for 15
Yeah.
years,
Uh,
every little show I had. And I'd see that smiling face and I'd say, oh man, that's why I'm doing it. But now I absolved her after 50 years. I said, you've earned your wings. You don't have to
she's your
come to shows anymore. And she basically doesn't come anymore to shows, but she used to.
you probably didn't realize that you just made two James Taylor references there. She
Well,
thought you were
James, I met James.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah, he wanted to do one of my songs,
yeah. Well,
but it never got further than that. Though I was
yeah,
told
yeah.
that
But
he was dead
she,
serious.
she thought you were a handyman. That's one of his songs.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
you
Well,
know,
James doesn't live far from here. Neither does the band, Dylan's old band. They're all deceased
oh,
now,
okay, yeah,
along with what's his that poor keyboard player. He just died. I did about 4 shows with them,
yeah.
a couple with John Prine.
Oh,
And
yeah, John,
and
John,
I've been backstage with Bob Dylan, but I never did chat with him or anything.
yeah.
I think he had kind of a bodyguard.
Oh, okay, okay.
I think so.
Well, and let me ask you this, was 2018's Hardy, was that your last release, your latest?
Well, I've released another one called I'm Okay, but I'm redoing it because
Okay.
this fellow Howie Hirsch heard uh, my music. We knew each other from Worcester, but he was on the road with Joe Cocker for 7 years. But he became a producer, and he produced and co-produced Mariah Carey, Paula Abdul, Joe Cocker, Tracy Chapman, Snoop Dogg, Jay-Z, just a host of everybody. And he went crazy for my song, so we produced this one called "Kiss Me," and we remixed it. Jamie Kent was the original producer.
Oh,
He's down in Nashville. He's a mover and a shaker down in Nashville, and he wanted to produce it. I said sure, so he produced it, and then Howie made it like, for me, for my taste, he made it more precise with the bass and the drums, especially. And he took out some, foul notes here and there, and that attracted this woman. I'm not going to say her name because she doesn't want to be contacted, but she's a former senior vice president of Sony and was president of Michael Jackson's record company. And she was completely wowed. And that's what she said when she heard it. Wow. And that's like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're getting right up to the current time.
Yeah, we are. Yes, we are.
I'm pretty active. I still do a little martial arts and just by myself. Yeah, I'm slow, but I still do some of that. Yeah.
Okay.
I do Yid style Bagua, and I do a little bit of Shorin-ryu, traditional Okinawan karate.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Well, you could teach me a thing or two for sure. I don't.
Well, fighting's pretty stupid. I'll tell you that. The worst way to resolve a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Just the worst. Just the stupidest.
Yeah. I agree. I agree with you there. Yeah.
It brings war and killing and fighting. Just brings hardship and misery onto everybody in the world.
Yes, it does, Roger. Yes,
it's just a waste.
Yeah.
Stupid.
Yeah, I'm totally.
I'm the only pacifist martial artist,
Okay.
And I'm the only vegetarian, meat eating vegetarian, also.
Right. Contradicting yourself, huh?
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, Roger, we'll mention again that you're still out there occasionally playing live, right?
Yep. And I'm not doing much. I'm doing a show in Worcester for WCUW. They're going to show this film we've been talking about.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do a short set in Worcester, and then I'm going to do a show in Bloomington, Indiana, at the Orbit Room, and May 3rd at the Orbit Room, and May 17th at the front room of WCUW's concert hall there. And then I got a show at the big Academy of Theater. It's a really beautiful place. And this woman, Jamie Delia, is promoting it, and she wants me to do Dylan songs, or she actually wants me to do my songs and maybe a couple of Dylan songs. And that's on October 12th. But that's all I'm doing. I miss people, though, because I'm not performing as much, but I don't know. I don't miss them enough, I guess.
I hear that. I know what you're saying.
I love audiences and people.
Yeah. All right, Roger. Well, I want to thank you again for doing this.
Sure.
And taking time out.
Would you send me a link so I can?
Yeah, I sure will.
My folks put it up so we can.
Yeah.
People can watch it.
I sure will.
Very nice.
All right. Well, thank you for the stories and the anecdotes and the humor.
Oh, sure.
It's all been very worthwhile. Thank you, Roger.
Well, thank you.
Enjoyed it, and I will send you this link once I get a little editing, maybe. And you put it on wherever you'd like to, your Facebook, your web page.
Oh yeah, we'll use it. We've got to promote these 3 shows, and we'll use it right away. Go. When do you think it'll be ready?
Probably a week.
Oh yeah, give it to me in a week, and I'll give it to my people, and they'll start showing it around. Sure.
Great. There you go, and then it'll be on my channel as well. So
yeah,
see what kind of mileage we can get out of it.
Okay, Greg. Thank you very much.